I'm rushing for time. So, hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and welcome to the summary for the day of 1068 to 1069 for the 26th to 27th of January. Reunion dinner awaits, so I need to rush. so, yeah, so whatever it is, happy Lunar New Year to everyone. And also, wish you guys a healthy, prosperous, and smooth sailing Lunar New Year, or the entire year until next year, something like this. So anyway, so let's start off with the Kherson front, because I want to talk about the Donetsk earlier first, because many crazy things is happening over there. So over at the Kherson front, there is fighting reported over in the Dnipro direction. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, as usual, I'll just go to draw it at the Pridniprovsky, bridge there. Charlie's reported Antonivka, Pridniprovsky, as well as Berislav. So that's all, nothing particularly special. Strategic situation pretty much is the same. Over at the Zaporizhia front, we have fighting reported in the Orikhiv sector of the Zaporizhia front. Fighting is reported at Novoandrievka, Novodanilivka, Orikhiv, as well as Malatomachka. So these are over 2 days, of course. The latest fighting is Orikhiv and Novodanilivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So there is some push coming in this direction. So let's see. But usually, as usual, there's nothing much really particularly, going to change. So there is not the big operation. Like as usual, if there's a real big offensive operation, we can tell. We can tell just from the reports. It will be very obvious. So this is probably just skirmishes or slow grind, slow push. Over at the Velika Novosilka front, we have proclamation by the Russian Defense Ministry of the full capture of Velika Novosilka. As I mentioned, I believe this is already full capture. It's just that we do not have the mapping to reflect that. But the Russians have now celebrated the capture of Velika Novosilka. Just to note, this is the first time the Russians have taken Velika Novosilka. It was never taken by the Russians. This was the front line for the Ukrainians where in 2022, and the Russians was mostly fighting with the Ukrainians at Vremivka, which is next door. The Russians previously only went up to Nekushny. They tried to attack Vremivka, but they never have success around it, with the Ukrainian clashing with them at Vremivka. So this is the first time the Russians have taken Velika Novosilka. So this is the significance of that. And the Russians are already pushing out. So fighting is being reported towards Belatsky, Privyone, as well as Novosilka. And I got a feeling that this is a continuation of the operations from Vremivka and Velika Novosilka. They are not slowing down. And the Ukrainians, if they manage to redraw, was probably going towards Belatsky in their withdrawal. So no things are happening in this direction. And as you can see, Belatsky have not seen fighting since the first report on the 11th. Vinnypole also have not been reported fighting since the 20th. So this is definitely, a continuation. So let's see how this goes. Over in this Andrievka front. So this entire region is, I'm not going to call it the Andrievka front for now. I think lacking for a better name. Fighting is reported at Rozdone, Rozliv, Constantinople, Ulakli, Dashne, Yantarne, Shevchenko, Andrievka. So the concentration is now on Andrievka because it's the most strategic town at this moment in this sector. The Russians are pushing in all directions as usual. The Ukrainians still hold the one-way exit or one way to hell at Ulakli as the Russians continue to put pressure. But the Russians are making some progress over in the south of Dashny as the Russian forces are slowly moving. The Ukrainians are evidently putting up a very, very strong defense over in this region here. So the progress has been very, very slow for the Russians in this sector. So let's see. Over at Andrievka, as mentioned in the quick update, we have the Ukrainian mapping the Russians to have taken this line. This is the line. And then this is also the other place where they claim that the Russians have taken. So clearly the Russians actually came from the northeast, which is exactly how I speculated that is likely to be the case, where the Russians attacked from Petropavlivka into this geolocation. This is how this is my speculation or analysis of where it could coming, and with this update from the Ukrainian mapping, this seems to be proven to be true. So the Russians are also still attacking at Shevchenko, which means, because if this is the truth, if this is the correct, then the Russian mapping claim that the Russians came from the east is likely to be inaccurate, which also probably explain why there is still fighting at Shevchenko. So, but anyway, we shall continue to wait and see how this continue to play out. Definitely, this front line just collapsed quite suddenly, which is why everything is still pretty in flux. So over in the southern flank of the Pokrov front, as you can see, suddenly there's a lot more icons. Bodanivka, Kotlyarivka. Kotlyarivka is the first time. Preobrazhenka is also the first time being reported. So the Russians are now expanding outwards. They are fighting at Novoyelizaveta, Nedievka. They are pushing now towards Kolyarivka, and also pushing down to Preobrazhenka in the south of Nedievka. They are still trying to push towards Stripny. Fighting is reported at Novoandrievka, Yasinove. They are pushing towards Bodanivka, probably from this southern flanking operation south of Stripny, as well as Slovianka. And an important thing to note is the frontline changes over in this region, with the Russian forces taking 2-3 lines at Slovianka and the entire eastern half of Novoandrievka. Yeah, I forgot the name. So, as well as another 3 line in the south of Novoyelizaveta. So the Russians are making seems to be expanding or ramping up fighting in this sector. So things is getting really tricky right now for the Ukrainians. As usual, there's really no good news for the Ukrainians right now. So this is one big arrow movement, just in case you want to understand. So they are again pushing for the border, and so let's see how this goes. So over in the Pokrov sector, we have fighting reported. So let me adjust. Fighting is reported at Kotliny, Udashny, Uspenivka, Shevchenko, and Zeleny. Seemingly, the intensity seems to be a lot shorter, a lot smaller now. These few days, as the concentration is now in the south, due to the fall of Velika Novosilka, the breakthrough into Andrievka, the Russians seems to be pushing south more now. So we are still looking at this situation. Geolocation of Russian forces, Ukrainian forces just nearby, confirming the front line for us. But generally, the Russians are somewhat seemingly not making the progress at this moment, especially at Udashny. Kotliny, of course, 3 days ago, we have all the frontline changes. But let's see, because there is a possibility that we just simply do not have the updates to confirm our suspicions. So over in the Minohrad sector, so let me adjust. At the Minohrad sector, we have fighting, as Zeleny already mentioned, fighting is reported at Novopalivka, Sukiya, in the north of Novohrodevka, and then Promin and Myrolyubivka. So this area here is a static line, so I don't expect too much from this area. But definitely the Russians want to close down towards the south of Pokrov. Over in the northern flank of the Pokrov front, we have fighting reported at Yelizavetivka, Vodyane Druhi, Baranivka, and Zeleny Pole. So, but that's all. So this front line also seems to get stuck right now. Maybe Ukrainians have reinforced this area and the Russians are not making the breakthrough they have previously. So anyway, we shall see how this continue to play. Over in the Thorax front, at the Thorax front, we have fighting reported at Krymsky, Thorax, Shebenivka, and Didievka. So strategically, nothing have changed in this sector. We move on to the southern flank of the Bakhmut front. We're fighting reported at Bilohora, Peteshny, and Stupochki. So nothing special about this. We will move further up north. Over in the northern flank and the central area, fighting is reported at Vasilkivka, Orikovo Vasilivka, and Chasivya. Geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting hit, IFV getting hit by shelling, but that's all. Nothing particularly special. It's still a slow grind in this sector. We move on over to the Sivers front. Sivers front, we have fighting reported at Verkhomo Okanyamsky, Ivanodarivka, and Bilohorivka. as well as towards Sivers. Dvorichna was mentioned. I'm not sure if this is an attack through the Serbianske forestry, because there is fighting reported in the Serbianske forestry, or is this simply just some shelling report. The importance of Dvorichna is because it's a crossing. So you can see that there is a bridge over here. This is actually a railway bridge, and you can see it's actually destroyed. But I'm quite sure they can still somehow use it. So this is the significance. It only was attacked on the 26th. It's just a one-day thing. Over at the Liman front, let me see, how do I fit everything in? Yeah, very hard, but okay, let's do this then. Liman front fighting is reported, as mentioned, Serbianske forestry, Torske, Dvorichna, Yampolevka, Terni, Koleziazi, and Yampil is also mentioned, which also makes me wonder if the Russians are nearby, in the forest near Yampil, which would then explain the nearby attack towards this Dvorichna. But I'm not sure, because we don't have mappings or any intel to suggest that's the case. And the Ukrainians definitely is still in Torske, with geolocation of FPV drone hitting Ukrainian armored vehicles south of Dvorichna. So that's about it. So let's see, how this continue to play. Clearly, I'm not rushing my time enough. I'm still talking so much. In the Makiivka, Kharkivka region, fighting is reported at Makiivka, Kharkivka. It could be also coming from Makiivka direction and towards Zeleny Dolina. So Zeleny Dolina is relating to the situation near the Ivanivka, with the Russian forces pushing in this direction from Ivanivka and the other direction towards Koleziazi. So, but I don't think, of course, the Russians are here. I'm quite sure the fighting is just nearby, before the heavy fortifications. And I don't even think we can see the fortifications here. Yeah, so I'm not sure if these lines are real or not, but yeah, it is what it is. So moving on, over the Borova front. At the Borova front, we have fighting reported at Novoyelizavetivka and towards Sverdokhlebove. So Ryba, the Prussian source, claimed that the Russians have established control over Sverdokhlebove, which they call Sverdlovka. However, the geolocation for that by Crimea Caprice corrected themselves, saying that this geolocation might actually be wrong. It's not here. It might be somewhere more towards the east. So I will not update this mapping. This update in the future. The front line will remain here, but we shall wait. But the Ryba might actually be looking at Crimea Caprice geolocation and make this wrong conclusion. Which I also did, because I simply reporting. So anyway, continuing at the Borova front, so this attacks here. Fighting is reported at Nadia, Kopanki, Zeleny High, Lozova, as well as Bohoslavka. So that's about it. Strategically, more or less the same thing. We move on to the Kupiansk front. At Kupiansk front, things are getting hotter and hotter. Fighting is reported at Kupiansk, Petropavlivka, Zargorukivka, Stepova Novoselivka towards Pischany, Krylivka, Klushkivka, as well as Kolesnikivka. So you can see the squeeze is coming. If this is going to continue in a very strong intensity, then the Ukrainians are definitely getting squeezed by the Russian forces. But tentatively, it is still just an intensifying of the strategic situation. There is nothing to suggest that there's a major operation of offensive just yet. Over in the Dvorichna region, the Dvorichna front, there is big update. So, a Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Dvorichna. This is today's report, just published before I started the recording. So, Dvorichnaya was liberated according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So, let's wait and see. I believe this is most likely correct, because based on the progression of the war, the trend, the lack of update, that I believe if the progression continues, the capture of Dvorichna does make sense. If the Russians have captured Dvorichna, that also would explain why there is fighting towards Putnikove and Korkivka, shelling at Rikodub, because the Russians are now going to start to push out. Whether the Ukrainians are able to slow down the Russians would remain to be seen. But of course, this is a pretty dangerous place. A lot of place for snipers and ATGM positions, MG nest to hide. So But yeah, big news that the Russian Defense Ministry actually announced the capture of Dvorichna. Nothing on the border. So over in the Kharkiv front, at the Kharkiv front, we have only fighting reported at Voschansk and some shelling reported at Veliki Prokody. Over at Voschansk, there is this TOS strike being geolocated just off the aggregate plant. And so this confirmed that the Ukrainians actually have already retaken some of this position in the south, in this southern part of the Voschansk. However, that's about it. We move on from the Kharkiv front into the Kursk front. In the Kursk front, we have in the southern flank, fighting reported at that I think we need to zoom in. So over at Gonal, Goevo, and Krylovka. So nothing particularly special about this. The Russians seems to be pushing much harder in Kursk these 2 days. In the central region, in the Suja sector, the things getting a bit complicated. Fighting is reported at Manovka, Zamoste, Suja, possibly Koncharovka, and then shelling is reported at Golevka, Zaleshenka, and Pervy Kinziazi was actually mentioned. I'm not sure if this is an attack or is this some shelling. Attack at Merne, and also Kazacha Loknia was mentioned. Maybe it's shelling, maybe it's an attack, we do not know. But if this is an attack, then we are looking at a pincer operation happening all around Suja. But tentatively, we can't be sure. We need more information, and this information is only coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, so we don't have much. The Ryba, the Prussian source, is not going to talk much about Kursk because it's a Russian offensive operation, and the Ukrainians don't want to talk about Kursk because Kursk is a cope operation. So to cope, you cannot talk much about it. So that's about this central region. In the northern flank, we have fighting reported at Chekhovskoye Porosnoye, Novaya Sorokina, Nikolaevka, Viktorovka, Malaya Loknia, as well as Nikorsky. Geolocation of Ukrainian tank getting hit in the south of Nikorsky was noted, which means the Ukrainians are still in the region at Nikorsky, but we still haven't have any news regarding this northern flank. So strategically, more or less the same thing. And over in the western flank, we have fighting reported over at Lebedevka, Sverdiklovo, as well as Nikolaevo Daryuno. Nothing special about this. Strategically, more or less the same. So that's about it. So thank you for watching. This is the summary for the day of 1068 to 1069 for the 26 to 27 of January. Press the like button, subscribe. Happy Lunar New Year. Just in case you do not know, Lunar New Year has nothing to do with religion. It's not a religious festival. It's called Spring Festival because it's a celebration of the arrival of spring and the end of winter. So yeah, so you can celebrate too, so don't be shy, it's not a Chinese New Year, although we like to call it that, but it's a Lunar New Year because we follow the lunar calendar. So what is the lunar calendar? Follow the moon, So anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe. See you guys in the next update.